Hey guys, it's RBB. Welcome back. This is number 5 in our Maya Basics series. Today we're going to look at a few new things in terms of hard surface modeling. We're going to look at how to make our models look a little bit better, look a little bit more complex, a little bit. We're going to learn about how to bevel our edges. We'll work with the extrude tool today, maybe looking at how to add some edge loops. And I want to review how to work with your scene in terms of groups and things like that. So the other day, we left off with duplicating objects and grouping objects. And we made some tables, and then we made a set of tables, and then we made groups of tables on and on. And I also showed you the hypergraph hierarchy, if you recall, which was basically the outliner in kind of a graph form. So if we look at the hypergraph hierarchy, okay, you can see what's in the scene. Okay. And if you click on it, you can see, where is it? It'll light up just the same way as you can over here. If I click on it here, it would light up. Now, what I did is because I was getting ready to start something new today, I deleted a whole bunch of those tables, those just extraneous groups of tables. So if you look at my workspace, I have one table. I have a group, right? That's got these 4 legs and a tabletop. In my outliner here, it says dining room tables group. And in that group, it's got table group 1, table group 2, and table group 3. Now, if you look, there's no such thing as table group this one and this one anymore, right? There's nothing here. When I select them, there's nothing there. So there's nothing in these groups anymore. So there's no reason for them to be here. And eventually, as you're working, your scenes are going to get heavier and heavier and more complex and more complex. So don't have Maya doing stuff that there's no such thing. So I'm actually going to grab these groups either from the hierarchy or from here in the outliner and just delete them. Okay, there's nothing in those groups. And you can tell that I'm not messing anything up because nothing's happening, right? They're just junk. This one right here, this dining room group that has all 3 of these guys in it, okay, that also seems to be extraneous because there's nothing there. And if I delete it, nothing happens. Now you see I have a dining room group with a table group in it. There's no reason to have a group of one thing. So I'm going to middle mouse click this guy and drag it out of the group and throw away this larger group that has nothing in it. Okay, so now it's all nice and cleaned up. And whether you want to do it from the hypergraph hierarchy or if you want to do it from over here in the outliner, it doesn't matter. But now you see I've got my table group 1, which is made of the tabletop and the 4 individual legs. So I remembered to name it. We got it a group. And if I change my mind and made some changes, clean up the outliner. Don't leave a bunch of stuff there. It's like leaving a bunch of empty boxes sitting around. All right. So what's first thing we do when we start Maya? We clean up our scene. No, we set our project. So file, set project. I already did this, but I'm going to do it again anyway. Set project, because you see we do it every single time. And now we're going to look at a few more tools. I'm going to grab this table and I'm grabbing it by the group so that I can move it easily, right? If I wanted to, of course, I could marquee, drag all over it, then select each one of them and have a whole handful of stuff. One last thing about groups before we move on. If you grab any item on your screen and you want to know, is it part of a group? If you hit the up arrow, okay, the up arrow, it will grab the group, the next level. This is the group. If this table was in a group with other groups, okay, with other tables, when I have this group, I could hit the up arrow again and it would grab the next group. So let's say I have a giant group called house furniture. And inside house furniture, I have kitchen furniture, living room furniture, bedroom furniture. And in each one of those, it's down into smaller and smaller groups. Well, eventually, if I went in and I selected a table leg somewhere on my scene, I could see that it was part of the table group, that was part of the kitchen group, that was part of the house group. Right. Enough about groups. You got that, right? Okay. All right, let's look at how to make our stuff look a little bit better. So when we make something very simple, this is fine. If we want to make something rather low polygon, It's a non-hero item, which means it's not going to be right up in the camera's face. If we were going to look at this table and like look at a coin on the table and we were up close with this, it would be what's called a hero item and it was going to take up a lot of the screen. But if this was just a table in a tavern somewhere, we'll just keep it low and kind of crappy like this because it's not going to take up a whole lot of processing power. Now, Maya has gotten a lot better and a lot faster. It used to be back in my day. I'm going to say that every video because it's true. But we had to be really careful about the number of polygons because if you recall what we talked about, that Maya is doing a ton of math for every single one of these faces. In fact, let me show you a little bit more specifically. When we have a piece of geometry, every single face on every single piece of geometry has what's called a normal sticking out of it. Okay. My father, this is totally an aside. My father we used to say that he had imaginary friends that we didn't know. They were called the normal people because he would say, stars walk down like normal people, or why can't you eat like normal people? And we always said we never knew any normal people. But anyway, that's beside the point. Every one of these faces has one of my dad's friends in it, one of the normals. And if you want to see what the normals look like, if I want to, let's see, display geometry and polygons, face normals. Okay, see every one of these little spiky guys sticking out, these little like antenna looking things? Every single polygon. So if I do the same thing here, you'll see the little ones sticking out of all of these polygons, face normals. Whoop, there they are. Okay, they are sticking out at 90-degree angle directly from every single face. And what those are, they really are like little antennas. And they're reporting back to, the Maya gods or whatever. Hey, I am face number whatever, whatever. I can see the camera. I can see a light. I've got this guy next to me. I'm shiny metal. And it gives tons and tons of information about that specific face. And every single face is doing that. So right now, this tabletop has 6 faces. So 6 faces are reporting back to the renderer, to Arnold, saying, I'm shiny, I'm in the light, I'm being shadowed by something else, giving a ton of information. If I had this divided for no particular reason into, 6 divisions and 6 divisions, and I've got 72 faces, 72 individual faces are going to be given information. Now, one face and 72 faces doesn't make that big a difference. But in a scene, you could easily have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of faces. So if you get in the habit of modeling efficiently, even though Maya is more powerful in terms of like Arnold doesn't have as big a problem with it, and things like that, and rendering engines are getting better and better, it's still going to be more efficient if you if you model efficiently. So one of the things I used to do is if I made, let's say I made a whole big haunted house, I would turn it around to the back to where the camera can't see it. And I would rip off the whole back like a movie set. If you've ever been on a movie set and they just have like the false fronts of buildings and there's nothing behind them, because there was no reason for Maya to be rendering internal walls and the backs of buildings that the camera was never going to see. And I'll say it lots of times as we move forward, but if the camera can't see it, we don't care. All right. If it's way in the back and we can't see it, or it's hidden by something, or something's covering it, don't model it. Don't light it. Right. We don't care. If the camera can't see it, we don't care. All right. Zoom out from this guy a little bit. Arrow up to grab the group. Move that guy over. And I'm going to turn off those normals. Normals. I don't know those people. Normals. Oh, whatever. Okay. It won't show me the rest. So that's okay. All right. So if we drop down a piece of geometry. So I just made a cube and I'm going to hit F to focus in on that. Nothing in the world is perfectly edged, like where a face is going to meet another face and it goes from 100% to 0 instantly. Okay. The sharpest ceramic knife, even microscopically, has some kind of edge to it. Otherwise, you would just split yourself in half, like if you walked into it, right? So even a machined metal, fancy, whatever piece of block, okay? I don't know, I'm having trouble Englishing today, is not going to have perfect edges. And that's a dead giveaway that something is really CG and kind of lame. Now, RBB, you just said if it's in the back, we don't care. That's true. If this is sitting way in the back of our scene, we don't care. That's fine. But if we're going to see it in any sort of detail, we want to make sure that this looks less CG. So one of the ways to do that is to bevel these edges. And a bevel is where one surface falls off to another surface. So think about like your kitchen counter. The top of the counter, falls off, and usually kitchen counters have decorative bevels. It's curled under, or it's full nose, or there's like whole names for all these bevels. But what we want to do for a bevel is if we grab an edge, okay, grab it through your modeling toolkit, or the way I just did by hitting right click, going to edge. When I grab an edge, if I say, and I'm going to focus in on that edge right there. If I go to my modeling toolkit and I choose bevel, click on bevel, boop. Okay, definitely helps to say boop. What it's going to do is it's going to take that edge that was right here and it's going to split the difference until the next closest face. Does that make sense? See how it sort of just cut off it cut off half of this face and half of this face and dropped off. Okay, well, that's obviously a little bit extreme. We just wanted a little bit of an edge. So there's a couple things we can do to fix it. One is right here, the little poly bevel popped up and it says right here, it's half. We don't want it to be half. Now I can hover over the word fraction right here, left click and move back and forth and change the amount, or I can type in the amount right here. So if I said like 0.02, that is a much smaller bevel, all right, and looks a lot better. Even if we click off of this item, okay, even if we click off of this item, that edge just looks better and less CG than these perfect edges. Okay, so that's sort of basic right there, right? But let's look at a couple other things that the bevel tool can do. So I'm going to grab my edge. Let's go ahead and do this one. And if I say bevel, again, it's going to split the difference between those two edges. And I can make that, let's make it a little bit less. But let's say, I'm going to say 0.2. How about 0.2? Okay. Now let's say I do want it to fall off like that. I do want this to be rounded. But man, I wish I had more options. Like, could I go rounded, 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 rounded? Could I bevel a bunch of times? Well, you could, but that would be really inefficient. Instead, I'm going to go to my bevel tool right here and choose the segments. And so I can divide that into, more segments to round that. Now back to one of our first things, could I just go nutso cuckoo like this and make it super soft and smooth? Yes, if I needed to. But if I don't need it to be so perfectly smooth, I don't want 12 more faces. Notice that Maya when it makes these divisions, these are still four-sided faces. 1, 2, 3, four-sided faces. Okay, so I'm not screwing up the geometry. I am a little bit right here because this was a four-sided face, and now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11, right? So I would want to fix this geometry here. But that's one way to curve or smooth the divisions when you create a bevel. So those are some options for like rounding the edges. And if I'm not going to see it really close, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to be, further back. And there you go. So when we see things up close and they're real faceted, they look kind of crappy, but from a distance, that's not so bad, right? And that looks way less CG again than these perfect edges. Okay, so the bevel tool is really helpful. Now I'm going to flip this guy over. Actually, I'm going to flip the whole world over because there's no gravity here. I'm going to grab this cube. Let's say that I want to do this whole top, this whole edge should be beveled. Can I bevel more than one edge at a time? Of course I can. So I'm going to grab my edges and I can either shift select each of these edges, or Maya's pretty smart. And if I double clicked, it would figure, oh, you're trying to go around this top part. Now, when I say bevel, it beveled all of them together. Okay. And again, split the difference. Okay, split the difference between that and next face. So let's do 0.03. I don't know, I just made that up. Okay, and we'll give it 2 segments. Okay, that's a lovely, nice, sort of better refined edge. And that looks so much better and will look better in any renderer than the super perfect edge. Okay, so that's just a real brief overlook of looking at the bevel tool. And boy, you know what? I already spent like 15 minutes talking about the bevel tool. Although I did go off on a rant about normal people, but maybe we'll just leave this one on bevel. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe this will just be a long one. Pick it up as I go along. All right. So another way to stop the bevel from splitting right in half is to give it these like bumpers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this guy. Bye-bye. Okay. So let's say I have this cube right here, born at the origin, and I want to bevel this top part, but I don't want it to be able to just cut this whole face in half. I just quit being silly. I just want to do this top part right here, right? Well, right now it's going to split between this face, this edge, and the next edge. But I can set up a bumper by creating a division. Now, we looked at making divisions the other day in the attribute editor, right? And oh, what did I forget to do? I forgot to name it. Know what this one is yet, so I might name it in a minute, but just for good practice, I'm going to call this bevel box, just to name it something, just to practice. I could divide and give it some divisions like this, right? And each one is going to split the face in half, and then it's going to split those two in half, and then in half, da 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 da. Okay. Um, that's great. So if I do this and I bevel and I give it one division, if I bevel now this edge loop, instead of splitting between here and here, it's going to split between here and here. Well, that's pretty handy, but what if I want it to be even a little less? I could give it more divisions, right? So now this edge right here is only going to split between this edge and this edge, but look at all this extra junk I made for no particular reason. So I'm going to step back there, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to one division. Well, two divisions, actually. Okay. So now I have this band, this edge loop going all the way around my object, right? And remember that our edge loops should be loops. They should be continuous all the way around. And I can move this edge. Because it's along an edge like this, I can move this edge. I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit, okay? And I'm going to double click this edge because it had nowhere else to go. It figured, okay, that's what you want. And by double clicking, it grabbed that whole edge loop. Now watch this coolness. I can move, scale, and rotate that edge. We sort of talked about it the other day, but you may have sort of kind of forgotten. So rather than adding a million divisions, I can take this one division and put it where I want. Okay, like a stop, like a stopper. Okay, so if I put it way up here, now this edge right here, even though this face is wide open, it's only going to split the difference between this edge and this edge. So that's kind of cool. And I didn't create a whole bunch of extra junk here. So we're still on edges. So I'm going to click and shift click. Okay. So I've got this whole top. And when I say bevel, boop, it only split the face between this one and the closest one. So that's kind of cool. That way I can sort of limit where it's going to bevel. And if you're making something, really big, some kind of machine or a spaceship or a car, maybe I want the edges to drop off on a door panel of a car or a panel of a spaceship. And I don't want to add a million extra pieces of geometry. I can just set up these little breakers, these little bumpers, to keep it from beveling or dividing further than I want. Okay. I would suggest beveling when you're basically done block modeling. So when you've got basically your whole shape done, then go in and bevel whatever edges are necessary. And the reason why I suggest that you do it that way is, let's say I want to pull out this face and extrude, which I guess we're going to talk about in a second. This is a much more complex, doesn't look much more complex, but we've added 8 more faces just by adding that one division. We've added 8 more faces to what was a 6-sided block. So we went from 6 to 14. Look at that math. Okay. So I would block it out and then bevel what you need to bevel. You'll see why later, but just trust me. Trust me. Okay. All right. So I'm going to, let's see, shall I move this guy and do something else? Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Okay. Could I bevel the whole thing at one time? Certainly. Here's a new cube. I could just grab all of the edges. I'm just going to marquee select them all. Remember that Maya sees this math, so it got them all when I marquee selected, and say bevel. and it split the difference between each of the faces. Now, because each of the faces was also splitting, it basically like kind of quartered the face. Okay. Is that a way to sort of round off? What if I did segments and rounded these? Okay. Lots of choices. All right. But yes, you can do multiple at one time, one or two at a time. We'll come back to that. Okay. We're probably going to need to make an entire video about extruding. So I think what I might do is skip extruding for right now and talk about adding edge loops because that makes more sense. It's kind of like what we just did here. Now I moved this guy off the origin. Okay, let's say I also have changed its shape a little bit and I'm going to rotate it. Now sometimes when I haven't really done anything particular to like nothing unusual to this. So it's possible that in the attribute editor, that third tab will still be there and let me subdivide, but nope, it doesn't. Okay, this is why I said that this tab often disappears after a while or grays out because all I did was move it around, but Maya still thinks it's a six-sided cube. And so if I try to change these subdivisions now, it's going to throw up all over itself. Whoa, hey, whoa, because it's not sure what's the height, what's the whatever. Okay, and it's all kinds of broken. Okay, so if I have already moved this guy off of being born, when he's born, I can slide this around all day long. Okay, great. But once I move it off the origin and do things to it, I really don't want to be using that tab anymore, even if it's available, because it's just going to break. What I am going to do now is all the things I could do here, change the height, the width, the depth, I can do with my move, scale, and rotate tools, right? And if I want to subdivide the width, the height, and the depth, I'm going to do that more specifically, not in even increments, but wherever I want them to be. So I'm going to hit F to focus and put this guy in the middle. Okay, forget that guy. All right, we're going to add an edge loop. And there's a couple of ways to do this. One of the easiest and sort of old school ways is up here at the top under, now look, you've got mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools, and mesh display. Thanks, Maya. That doesn't tell me anything. I know that I want to do something to the mesh, okay, but which one is it under? There's a million different tools here. Now, I don't really know necessarily a good way, except for that you just do it enough times that eventually you'll remember where it is. But under mesh tools, is a tool called Insert Edge Loop. Okay, so under Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, and it tells me click and drag on edges. Just went away. So, okay, I'm going to click and drag on an edge. If I click in the middle on a face, it's not going to do anything. If I click on an edge like it told me to, it puts up in a little imaginary rubber band. Like, where do you want this band to go? How about right here? There you go. That's great. Okay, let's click on another edge. Oh, there we go. Another rubber band going this way. Okay, and I can put that wherever I want it to go. So whether I'm dividing the height, the width, or the depth, okay, I can put those divisions specifically where I want them to go. Now this tool, like a bunch of tools in Maya, will just continue going. Like if I want to go do something else and I'm like, oh, let me move on to something else, things aren't going to work. And you're like, wait, why is it still making edges? You have to tell it to stop this tool. There are some tools that you're like, quit it. I'm done with you. And moving on to a new tool doesn't do it. The insert edge loop tool, you have to hit Q for quit, right? Or Quebec. If you hit Q, then you've stopped making edge loops and you can move on to do other things. But that insert edge loop is a more, I guess, robust or mature or whatever way of putting my edge loops specifically where I want them. So if I wanted to make this into, the TARDIS, because that's what it looks like. Okay, if I wanted to do that, I could go back to my insert edge loops, and I could, by looking at, look at a reference photo, right? And I could say, okay, well, there's a division there, and I'm not looking at the TARDIS. I don't know exactly where all the divisions are, but it's a police box. Okay, and I could separate where all the little inset panels are going to go. All right. And if these are windows or inset panels, then I can do something cool with them. When we get to extruding, you'll see. So that's a great way to do it. Another way, oh, and I have to hit quit to stop making those. Another way to do that is with this little guy right here, which is called the multi-cut tool. Looks like a little X-Acto knife. Okay. What the multi-cut tool will do is will allow us to click on any point and we'll start cutting. Okay, here's where this is going to bite you in the butt though. I could stop right there. Maya will let me, but that's bad modeling, right? Because here's a 1, 2, 3, 4-sided face. Here's a 1, 2, 3, 4-sided face, but here is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided face. So I need to make sure if I'm using this tool that I finish completing my path all the way around. Now, when you get more advanced, and you want to clean up poles like we were talking about before, you know, when like the cylinder is born with all those 20-sided faces and whatnot. You want to, there's ways to, like, I don't have to go in a straight line. I could jump over here if I wanted to, right? But this way I'm finishing my edge loop and now it's a complete edge loop. Okay. Later on, when you're fixing fancy stuff, you may, you know, just stop randomly here in the middle and break these up and whatever. But you just have to make sure that you're cleaning up multi-sided faces or more than 4-sided faces. All right. So right now here at the beginning, I just wanted to show you that because I know people are going to be like, "Why don't you use the multi-cut tool?" Um, that's fine if you know what you're doing, but I'll bet a lot of folks don't. So what I would suggest is using the whole rubber bands at a time. Okay. So that is adding edge loops and beveling. All right. I think that's going to be enough for today. I think that we're going to wait for extruding because that's really going to take its own class, I think. I might do a short about this because I did sort of ramble on talking about the normal people. All right, let's say we want to keep this though. Let's put ourselves right side up. Are we right side up? I don't know. Let's look and see. Yeah, there we are. Where's our table? There we go. All right, I'm going to move this guy. Quit. Edge loops. We might come back to this guy. Maybe we'll build the TARDIS. Let's do that next. Okay. All right. Do I want to save this scene? Nah, I didn't really do anything very cool. If I did, if this was more tables, because remember this scene is called Tables 0001. Okay, this could be called bevel practice or something, but it's really not very good. So I'm not going to bother saving this scene. If I go to close Maya right now, it'll say, "Hey, do you want to save the scene?" And my answer would be, "No, I do not." But I'm free to go on to a different scene. New scene, do you want to save it? No. Or I could go on to an entire new project and it's gone. It's like a Buddhist sand painting. It's just gone. Okay. All right, folks, that was a long one, but I hope that was helpful. Bevel and adding edge loops to make your models more complex and look better when we get to lighting and texturing. And it's just a more mature way of modeling. All right. I'll see you next time for extruding. Get ready. That one's sort of a tough nut to crack. There's a lot of ways you can mess things up when you start to extrude, but I have great faith in you. Come on, we're going to be up to like Maya number 6 by that point. You can do it. I know you can. All right. Get ready for your quiz. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.